The following podcast contains explicit language. One definition of explicit language is stated clearly and in detail, leaving no room for confusion or doubt. That's why we use those words.
Hello and welcome to episode 331 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. This show is going to air on Monday, January 3rd of 2022. Happy New Year, y'all. Upcoming events, we've got about 12 days until the beginning of the January LSAT, starting on the 15th of January. We have a deadline on Thursday, February 3rd, if you want to sign up for the March LSAT. You can come talk to me for free at my LSAT study group. We're going to be wrapping up the January 2021 LSAT study group. That's every other Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. All you need is a Demon free account. So lsatdemon.com and sign up for a free account, and you can start registering for not only my study group, but Ben does classes occasionally. I do other classes occasionally. There's all kinds of free resources. You can do drilling and timed sections and timed tests. And if you're new to LSAT prep, or if you're a refugee from another test prep company, please start with lsatdemon.com and a free account. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that we think about the test in a more intuitive, simple, common sense, fun kind of a way. Yeah. So please give that a shot. Today on the show, we had a follow-up from Chris, who had asked us for some advice about whether to get accommodations on the LSAT. We have a pretty long discussion about accommodations. We have a new leader in the, it didn't come from Spotify Wrapped, so I feel like Al gets a little bit of an asterisk, but Al almost doubled the previous gold medal winner for most minutes of listening to the podcast in the last year. So thank you for that, Al. We have a follow-up from Demon team member Brittany about our scholarship estimator, lsatdemon.com/scholarships. And we did a weekend question from Prep Test 73. Before we get into all that, Ben, I did want to talk to you about, I really like this idea you emailed the other day. We were talking about how we get more people to take our foundations classes in LSAT Demon Live. LSAT Demon Live, you have the opportunity to do live classes 7 days a week, multiple different offerings 7 days a week. And some of those, we have labeled them foundations.
Yeah.
And we've noticed that people tend to overestimate their own abilities, and they don't want to go to classes that have basics or foundations in the name for some reason.
They want advanced.
Yeah. So they want advanced or even expert, right? Because my double black diamond class is an expert class. And, everybody's welcome at that class, but it's like, hey, really? We're going to be doing the hardest questions at a really fast pace. And I know what your score is. And is this really the most efficient use of your time to be doing the expert level stuff?
Yeah.
So, I really do think that anybody who's scoring 150 or lower, maybe even 155 or possibly even 160 or lower, you really should consider going to those foundations classes. Yeah. It's going to be a slower pace. It's going to be, not the hardest questions. But it will be easy and medium difficulty questions at a comfortable pace where everybody can take their time and make sure that they get all of their questions answered. And ultimately, our goal is we want every single person in the room to understand every single question that we talk about in those foundations classes.
Yeah.
Because it really is like building a foundation, right? I mean, you can't build a house on top of a cracked foundation. Yeah. So if you're not understanding the easy and medium difficulty questions at a comfortable pace, Well, that's the work you need to do. And if you're scoring 155, you're probably struggling with some of those questions.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we have this bit of a quandary where people don't come to the foundations classes even though they should. We were
Yeah.
kicking around a bunch of ideas about how to get people to go to those foundations classes. And you emailed something that struck me enough that I wanted to put it on the agenda just to kind of kick it around with you.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
idea of you asked in bold, you asked, what is one easy thing we could do to encourage that? And you gave a little bit of background. You said, one of the devs has been teaching me this idea over the past year or so. I say, hey, we want to do X, Y, and Z. And he often responds, well, what about just doing X? Which happens to be the easiest thing on my list that is still likely to achieve the goal. Or better yet, he comes up with an even easier solution to our problem. These easy solutions are rarely perfect, but it's a trade-off. Super easy and fast solutions are cheap and easy to implement. If they work, great. We just saved ourselves a ton of time and effort. If not, fine. We didn't give up much, and so we can try something else.
Yeah.
I guess we could talk about foundations classes in specific. But what I really wanted to, I really just wanted to like thank you for this idea
Yeah.
and to talk about that a little bit more. Maybe our listeners could have like some other examples of that type of a thing.
Yeah, well, it's funny because he just does it so reflexively. I, of course, have come to expect it, right? So it's like we have a problem. And now because I expect it, instead of throwing three solutions at him, I'm asking myself first, right? Like, okay, do we need to do all these solutions to fix this problem? And are there other solutions or solution? Is there a solution that's the easiest of them all? And I said in there, it's rarely perfect. And that's because it seems like these, simpler solutions, they don't maybe accomplish exactly what you wanted to accomplish. The flip side of that, though, is that they're so easy, they're so fast that you get a solution quickly as opposed to new. Yeah.
Yeah. And probably have fewer unintended consequences as well.
Yes. That's what I wanted to get to, because it's weird because I just said that they're rarely perfect, but in some ways they're more perfect, not just because they're faster and easier, but because you have less complexity, right? So
You don't go around changing a bunch of other bullshit.
yeah, just to accommodate some specific scenario that you want perfect. You're like, well, okay, we're going to go with this easier billing system, for example. And yeah, we're giving up some things, but boy, that system, it works. There's no testing involved. It was up in 2 hours.
I actually have an example that is law school admissions related. Sometimes, we get these emails all the time on the Thinking LSAT podcast. By the way, help at thinkinglsat.com if you want to get on one of our agendas. We get emails that are like, my undergraduate GPA is only 3.1, and that's because I was sick during this semester and my mom died and I had to take some time off of school and I had 3 jobs. And also I started off as a biology major and that was a big mistake. So once I changed my major, then I had a higher GPA. And it's like they're throwing like, it's like they're throwing 8 different solutions at the problem of I have a low cumulative GPA. Yeah. And the one thing that we always say is, okay, good, pick one of those excuses or pick one fact.
Yeah. Like maybe it's none of those excuses. Maybe you just say my GPA ended with a 3.5.
Exactly. And it's like, hey, this is much simpler. You write a 2-sentence addendum instead of a 2-page addendum.
Yes. Yes.
You don't have the unintended consequence of making people think you're full of shit.
Yeah. And all the other, the can of worms that you now open by trying to craft this perfect solution to the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. And instead you go with the imperfect solution. Yes, it's true. They're not going to know about your mom's tragic death.
Yeah.
And they're not going to know that you started out as a biochem major and then later switched
And
to
you started out as
philosophy.
biochem because you had a mentor who gave you bad
Right.
advice. It's always something.
And your undiagnosed ADHD and your whatever. And it's like, okay, but hold on a second. If you try to go with the X, Y, and Z in that addendum, then you are going to muddy the waters a lot and waste their time and maybe cause them to think that you're a problem or that you're always looking for excuses. And instead, you go with the one simple solution of like, my GPA during my senior year was a 4.0.
Yeah.
And is it a perfect solution? No. But by the way, in this exact example, there is no perfect solution anyway, because your cumulative GPA is your cumulative GPA.
Yeah. And it frees up time, right? It frees up time
to do every other thing, including study for the LSAT.
LSAT, which is like, I think one of his, because he's reflexively always saying, okay, well, what about just doing X, or what about doing something that's simpler than that? It's forcing me to think about, well, what of these solutions, if not another solution, but what of these solutions is the one that's the easiest and the most, the word that comes to mind is impactful, but I don't want to say impactful, maybe the most effective. Like in life, right? Sometimes it's like we're trying to do 5 things to solve a problem, and it would just be easier to focus on one and really kill it on that one solution, even though you're now giving up, maybe these other things would have a 20% impact on your outcome. But now, because you can do the one thing that has an 80% impact on whatever your goal is and do it really well. Because, right, when you start doing 5 things, you do the one thing that matters most, probably less effectively. And maybe some days you don't do it. And in this case, right, it's studying for the LSAT. Like, your GPA is done.
Yeah. Boy, there's so many applications. I hope that our listeners will email help@thinkinglsat.com and give us some more examples. Or I guess my challenge to you, listener, this week is to look for one easy thing you could do to solve whatever various problems you think you're having in your life.
Yes.
You're depressed. Is there one easy thing you could do to fix that? You're overweight. Is there one easy thing you could do to fix that? You're, like not perfect solutions, but just like what's one thing you could do that wouldn't require you a grand master plan, right? In your LSAT studies, like you're not happy with your overall LSAT score, and you've identified a weakness in logical reasoning.
Yep.
I'll tell you right now, one easy thing you could do to fix that problem is basically to drill logical reasoning. Do one question at a time, and your problem is only ever one question that's in front of your face right now.
Get your mind wrapped around that. Yep.
I get it that you aren't happy with your 120 to 180 LSAT score. And I get it that you have a weakness in logical reasoning. And I even get it that you think you've diagnosed a problem with necessary assumption questions or whatever. Mm-hmm. But those are all still too big of, you can't just solve your necessary assumption problem. You need to solve one necessary assumption question.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, I just wanted to say thanks for that. And I did want to share that with the listener, because I think that there's a lot there that, whatever your big, you got a problem with your husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. What's one thing you could do?
Yep.
Just one easy thing that you could do without thinking about it too much. What's the one thing you could do that would be easy in order to encourage this much bigger, broad goal or problem that you're trying to solve?
Well, it's crazy too, because even when you said, problem with your significant other, the idea that came to my mind was like, sometimes you just have to listen to somebody. You don't even say anything. You just need to listen, acknowledge, and then bam, all of a sudden the ice starts melting and everybody's like, oh, you understand me? Oh, it's so great. And it's like, instead you're like going to go at it with some big solution, like, oh, I got to take you out. I got to do this. I got to do that. What about, hey, it seems like you're upset, and then just listen. And that's even less work. than like crafting an argument for why you're right.
Please email help@thinkinglsat.com with your solution. I really want to know what you did this week to find one easy thing you could do to fix whether it was LSAT related or not. I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that. So I hope you'll thank the devs for me, and I wanted to thank you.
I will. Thanks.
All right, let's dig into the show. We have this email here from Chris. This is a follow-up. I guess I'll go ahead and read it. Hey guys, just wanted to follow up since I finally got around to the episode where you answered my questions regarding accommodations for ADHD. Seriously, thank you so much for your input. Ben, I actually just finished reading Driven to Distraction by Dr. Hallowell after my psychologist suggested it during our first meeting. That book is a bit dated now, I think published in '95, but I felt like it was written about me. I'm going to start reading ADHD 2.0 immediately. Rediscovering this diagnosis these past few months has been eye-opening. A lot of my life makes sense to me now. What I really needed to hear, though, apparently, was these are the rules, you're playing by the rules, they're here specifically for this, you are legally entitled to this. I guess I can't help what the accommodations are, since I agree very much with Nathan that they seem overpowered, but that doesn't exactly mean I should not do it out of some sense of morality if I have the opportunity and a legitimate reason. It's kind of weird thinking of ADHD as something that needs accommodations, I guess. I haven't been treated since I was 13 or so, and I think a big part of that was just trying to prove that I'm normal and I don't need any extra help. Anyway, thank you very, very much. I seriously appreciate your feedback. I am now working on getting the proper letters filled out and submitted, and hopefully I'll have a good follow-up email for you both in a few months. Thanks again, Chris. And you might remember, Ben, I mean, you can tell from Chris's email, but that's the person who was like in a moral quandary about whether they should apply for accommodations or not. And I can't remember the details, but they had been diagnosed when they were a kid, apparently, and treated even.
Yeah.
And then, like, well, could I get accommodations for the LSAT? And we were like, yeah, they're wildly overpowered, but yeah.
That's not your battle. That's not a decision that's in your court. What's in your court is applying for them and getting them.
Yeah. Should you take advantage of, this disadvantage, which the Law School Admission Council has chosen to like overcompensate for? I mean, that's in our opinion, right? Like, it just seems like time and a half is kind of crazy. When you think about when you think about how much value 5 extra minutes has.
Yeah, I
having
think it's
18 extra minutes is like, what? It's just nuts, but.
Yeah, and then you have double time as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I think our biggest problem is that they've seems to have oversimplified the accommodations process, right? There used to be accommodations that were more tailored to the cases, I think in part because they had fewer cases, right? Before, a long time ago, they had fewer cases. And so maybe they had the bandwidth or the capability to tailor the accommodations to the individual cases.
We can't really speculate like what's going on behind the curtain, right? We know that they used to deny. Like at the beginning of my time teaching LSAT, I used to say, oh yeah, I mean, there is accommodations, but it's hard to get. But then they had that lawsuit that they lost, and their response, it seems, has been to basically just approve almost every application, right? We've been saying this for years that I literally I haven't heard anybody who got denied accommodations.
I haven't heard that in a long time.
Yeah.
At least a couple years.
For me, it's been way longer than that. I feel like I've been yelling on the podcast, like, hey, if you got denied, we would love to hear why you're getting denied. But like nobody emails help@thinkinglsat.com and tells us that they got denied. So, it seems now that they've just kind of decided, well, okay, we can't deny people.
Yeah.
And that seems problematic. I mean, I'm glad that the people who need and deserve these accommodations are able to get them.
Absolutely. It
But
just seems like the scale has tipped in the other direction. It was
yeah,
probably overly like restrictive before, and now it seems
yeah.
like overly generous. And who knows? We don't know. We're not experts in that field by any means.
Nope.
It's just based on our experience and based on the fact that it seems like when people get 5 extra minutes or give themselves 5 extra minutes for a section, they do astoundingly better. So, how much more help do you actually need? Do you need time and a half? Do you need double time? We don't know, but it's there. And if you have an accommodation such as ADHD, you should apply for it. One thing that he said here is he said, I think a big part of not getting help was just trying to prove that I'm normal and that I don't need any extra help. The reason that line stuck out to me is that in the book ADHD 2.0, the Dr. Hallowell actually talked about how people with ADHD tend to not want to seek out help precisely for that reason. And so it's this, catch 22, I guess. You have ADHD, you need help, or you could benefit a lot from even small interventions, but precisely because you have ADHD, you're not the type of person to seek out that help.
Well,
But I'm
sure.
glad.
No, I mean, that goes for all sorts of other things too,
Yeah.
right? Like depressed people don't go get the help they need for
'Cause
depression.
you're depressed. You don't want to get up
Alcoholics
and
don't go
solve
get the
it.
help
Yeah.
they need for alcoholism. Like it's
Yeah.
just, it's human nature, I suppose. But
Yeah.
yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, I hope people don't get the wrong impression because we are fully in support of people getting their needed, deserved, legally entitled accommodations.
Absolutely. We're just perplexed by the system.
You'd be crazy not to. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's. I am gonna be really, really interested in seeing the updated data. Like, I would love to know what percentage of the testing population is getting tested, or sorry, getting accommodations.
Yeah. Because the last time we looked, it had gone up every year, right? Like 1 or 2%.
Yeah, and I feel
somewhere.
like that hasn't been updated since what, 16, 17, 18 sound right? It's been a few years anyway.
Yeah, some for some reason that data has not been updated. Yep.
Yeah, that could be the. Maybe I'm just seeing monsters under the bed. Like, it could be that it's not even a problem, but it feels like a problem just because we know that scores are going up.
Yeah.
We also know that people who get, like, anecdotally, people who get accommodations, their score improves immediately. I mean, if you want to test it out for yourself, just try doing a test where you have 53 minutes a section instead of 35 minutes a section. Your score will go up, especially on the logic games. Like, your score will go up by like 10 points. I mean, just immediately.
Yeah.
And so we know that the accommodations are extremely powerful, and we know that scores have gone up a ton. And it could be that the scores have gone up a ton because, I mean, it would be easy to imagine that the entire increase in scores is because of more people getting accommodated.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
That's wild speculation, but it is entirely possible.
based on the outdated data that we have, if it had gone up from, say, 1% of test takers getting accommodated to 2%, you'd be like, well, I don't know, how much of an impact that's having. But the last number I remember was 6% or 8% are now getting accommodated. That's a huge portion of the testing population.
Yeah,
And maybe
and
that's reflective of the state of, learning differences. I don't know, but it's still a big number.
Yeah. Now, I know that when we talk about this, it makes people who aren't accommodated feel badly. People who are struggling,
Sure.
and they know they would do better with extra time, but they don't have a legitimate claim to
Or they
extra
don't
time.
think that they have a legitimate claim. It's very possible that they do, and they just go.
That's true.
undiagnosed.
Yeah, I guess I would encourage everybody to talk to their doctor. By the way, you do not need to go talk to the fancy Beverly Hills doctor for a $1,600, assessment. You do not have to do that. You can go ahead and talk to your regular Kaiser doctor or your, whoever your normal, like student health, probably.
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure that any physician, and I think that most people should have access to a physician or a psychiatrist or psychologist who could, in their opinion, just write you a letter and say, yeah, this person struggles with attention.
Yeah.
If you want to go that route, I'm pretty certain that you will get accommodated.
Yep.
If you ask for it. So, the other thing I would say is that you probably, like, if you're scoring 165, I'm not talking to you. Like, I don't feel sorry for you. You're scoring 165 with regular time. Fine. Like, work a little harder, study a little more, get that into the 170s. I'm not talking to you. Like, I just don't feel sorry for people who, like me, have a lot of privilege, right? Like, we grew up with, I didn't grow up in a rich family by any means, but I did go to college right after high school, and I have had opportunities, and I realized that. And so I'm just not, I'm not feeling sorry for people who are privileged and lazy like I am. I'm feeling sorry for the people who possibly might actually have an undiagnosed issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what score to cut people off at, but
yeah, I guess. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, 165 was a weird number. I guess I'm just what I'm saying is that because there also are the lazy students, and those are the people who piss me off, right? Like we do, and I know you've had this experience as well. You've had people who want to pay you hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars for one-on-one tutoring, but they don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
And they then, they let go get accommodations because they know that they'll do better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that to me is like, well, ultimately that's just not going to work out in your favor anyway.
Like, yeah, you're going to get into a school
you're lazy.
You're not ready to compete at.
It ain't I don't care what school you get into. Yeah, it ain't happening for you. Like if you're going to go get accommodations on the law school admission test because you know it will result in a higher score and save you time on LSAT studying, mm-hmm. You're not a lawyer. Like you're not going to be successful. I really truly believe that. I mean, because that's exactly the type of shortcut that I would have wanted to take if I felt like I needed it. And I was 100% not a lawyer. Like, I just don't have the work ethic.
Yeah.
But I certainly do feel for the people who've been grinding it out for 6 months. And, if you feel like you might have an undiagnosed issue, go talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to jump into this next email?
Sure. This one's from Al. Hey guys, podcast listening stats coming in hot. In 2021, I listened to 232 episodes of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I listened for over 20,398 minutes, which equals to about 14 days of listening. Wow, that's by far the highest number we've seen. Right?
Yeah, there was like 6,000 was the leader for a while. Then it jumped all the way up to 11,000.
Yeah.
And then Al is coming in with 20,000 minutes or 14 24-hour days.
Wow, Al, you're still listening to us. I guess we haven't pushed you away yet.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're willing to put up with us. So Al continues, Apple Podcasts don't offer an end of the year recap like Spotify does, so I tallied my numbers by hand. I scrolled back to the January 1st, 2021 releases in my recently played list in Apple Podcasts and counted the minutes of every Thinking LSAT episode I finished from then on. As evidence for all you skeptical lawyer folks out there, I attached a link to this email for a screen recording and me scrolling that list. Okay, cool. Thanks, Al. We'll just take your word for it.
Yeah, I'm not clicking on that. Come on. I don't give a shit.
I appreciate it. I mean,
yeah.
But if you're lying, well, you got your glory.
Yep.
My LSAT journey began during quarantine in the summer of 2020. I listened to 40 or so episodes that year. 270 episode 278 part 1 through 239. I'm
Working
not sure.
backward, I guess.
Oh, okay. I pulled the slot machine lever on way too many practice tests. This year I listened from episode 278, this is part 2, forward through episode 329, okay, and from episode 238 back through 59. Whoa, okay, lots of going all over, but okay. I pulled the lever on a few tests this year, prioritizing fewer tests. Sorry. I pulled the lever on fewer tests this year, prioritizing timed sections and drilling instead. Thanks, y'all, for the seemingly endless hours of LSAT talk, book recommendations, writing advice, and personal statement evisceration. Some of those statements really made me cringe. No offense, Ezra. I don't remember that one.
Oh no, that's the man. That's the man with the kind eyes.
Ah, okay. That's
the
Ezra.
legendarily, probably still most hilariously bad personal statement I think that we ever read. Unfortunately, that statement is going down in infamy. But
yeah.
Anyway.
Al says I'll be taking the LSAT next month and probably again this spring. Wish me luck. Good luck. I don't really care about law school at this point, but maybe I'll write a kick-ass personal statement just for the hell of it. Happy holidays. Okay, so you're taking the LSAT for fun. Maybe Al wants to teach the LSAT. I'm not following.
I will say that teaching the LSAT for fun is a very lawyerly thing. Like, I have lawyer friends who still do the LSAT just for fun. And that if you're that kind of crazy, then yeah, maybe lawyering is right for you after all. But
yeah,
if we have talked Al out of it in the thousands of minutes that he has listened, I feel like we've done him a service. So
okay, yeah,
I'm happy one way or the other.
Yeah,
I can't imagine writing a personal statement just for fun.
No. Although it might be good for his like future posterity. He could, or himself, right? Some people write in a journal for themselves.
Yeah, writing exercise, figure out what he does want to do with his life. If it's not lawyering, I'm sure Al, you'll be successful no matter what path you choose.
Yep. Cool.
You'll make it to the end. I know that for sure. All right.
We all do.
That's the one thing we can't fail to do. Like, we all make it to the end. It's, everybody's a success. Everybody is really very equal when you think about it.
That's true.
I mean, one way or the other, you're going to die and nobody's going to remember you. And that's, I mean, for real, like, you know, what, 100 years from now, almost nobody will be remembered. 1,000 years from now, it's like guaranteed nobody will be remembered.
No, you have to be someone. You have to be
like someone evil, or you have to be like Hitler to get
you have to be evil.
Yeah,
really. Alexander the Great, was he really great, or just domineering? Right? I don't know.
Donald Trump? Do you think Donald Trump is
no
one knows who he is 1,000 years from now?
No,
right?
Absolutely not. Not all the presidents. How many presidents do you remember? Right? It's like
yeah. If you go back to like the word, I mean, there are Grover Cleveland or whatever. It's like, huh? Who?
Yeah. Wait, what was his name? That's all you know is like a name, if that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, Al, good luck. I hope you do something fun and cool with your one-way journey through life.
Yep. I don't know if it's one way. Al seems to go all over, forward and back. Anyway. So.
Oh, yeah. Al got the time machine on the podcasts anyway. Okay. One more email here from, this is actually coming to us from team member Brittany. Flagged this. It says, "Hi, Ben and Nathan. I heard the shout out on the podcast about the Estimator. We were talking about our scholarship estimator. On last week's episode. It's lsatdemon.com/scholarships. And we were actually looking at some bad data.
We were.
Anyway, Brittany says, we were still tweaking the estimator last Wednesday and Thursday. It should be good to go at least until the updated index formulas come out, which is in January, I believe. When you run Palmer's numbers now, he gets more than half with a 173 and more than full with a 176. This is basically a correction of what we were talking about last week. So sorry about that, Palmer. Anything more you want to say about the estimator?
No. I mean, we were just updating it with the 2021 numbers. And based on what we've heard anecdotally, it seems to be predicting people's scholarships fairly consistently. That's all.
Oh yeah, I like. Please let us know if that's not true. Please, if you look at the estimator and the results just don't match what you actually got, we would love to know about that. Of course, we also want to know when you applied, and we might want to glance at that personal statement.
Sure.
You could have stepped in it somehow, but
Yeah.
if you send us your LSAC adjusted GPA, where you applied to, and a result that came out dramatically different from what the estimator offers, right? Like if the estimator said more than full and they offered you $5,000, like that's the kind of thing that we would like to hear about.
Sure.
If it's slightly off, well, it's just an estimate, and it's going to be slightly off in one direction at some schools and slightly off in the other direction at other schools. But we would love to know. You can just email the show, help@thinkinglsat.com. Or there's a link on the estimator, isn't there, to give feedback? There used to be. Okay. So you can find the link on lsatdemon.com/scholarships. By the way, that's a real good first step. If you're thinking about law school and you want to see what kinds of schools you might be able to get into at what kinds of prices, I can't imagine a better tool than lsatdemon.com/scholarships. I think you should probably start there on your journey.
Yeah.
Play with some numbers.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. All right. Anything more about that? Sorry, Palmer, that we gave you bad information for a week, but it is now corrected. And thanks, Brittany, for letting us know.
Yeah. No, that's all.
All right. Want to do an LR question?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. I think it's your turn to read, and I'll do the question.
All right, awesome. This is from test 73, section 4, and it's question 1. It's a logical reasoning question.
Okay.
It says, in an experiment, 10 people were asked to taste samples of coffee and rank them.
Okay. I would love to do this experiment. I might be the world's worst person at it, though. I think I have discovered that I have like no palate for telling the difference between, like, I never could do it with wine back in my drinking days. I could never do it with coffee. I don't give a shit. Like, give me them if it's hot. Like McDonald's coffee, great. Starbucks coffee, great. Coffee I make at home, perfectly fine. Someone else makes the coffee sometimes if I have guests, also fine. Like I give no shits at all. Fresh ground beans, great. Stale beans that were ground up a year ago in some factory, perfectly good. I don't care. Anyway, coffee tasting.
Maybe we're the same here. I think like it's like it's all good except for it's like bad, right? Sometimes it's like, whoa, what's that? Right? I don't want that, but otherwise it's fine. It's just normal.
What can I taste? Oh, I sent back a Diet Coke the other day. Diet Cokes, when they're out of code, when they're out of date, and it's printed on the bottom of every can, the sweet just like dies. I don't know what it is, but the aspartame or whatever cancer-causing sweetener that they put in Diet Coke these days, because obviously it's not health food by any means, but I can definitely tell the difference between one that is like good and one that's bad. But I never sent back a glass of wine or anything. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. Okay. So 5 of the people were given chocolate with the coffee. And this group subsequently reported that all the coffee samples tasted pretty much the same as one another.
So right there, I naturally have this hypothesis. Oh, maybe the coffee, it's possible that the chocolate is ruining the palate of these coffee drinkers.
Sure, it's just like dominating it, right? Like, you can't even taste anything else.
If you brush your teeth and then go have a glass of orange juice, the orange juice is going to taste like shit.
Yep.
So,
you brush your teeth, Nathan?
I do.
Oh, okay, cool.
Once a week. I do it on Sundays. It's totally possible, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm also on guard here that they might try to pull a fast one and say that that's definitely what happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess this one problem that I have in the back of my head, and I know I'm just reading, but we're talking about 10 people and then 5 people. It just seems like an extraordinarily small group of people to be talking to draw any huge conclusions from.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's also an issue.
Yep. Anyways, 5 others tasted coffee only, and they were able to detect differences.
Okay, so now we actually do have a difference in the groups.
Yep.
The chocolate eaters couldn't tell a difference between the coffees. The non-chocolate eaters could tell a difference between the coffees. That's a fact. What does it mean, though? Because I do have another objection already, which is how did you divide the groups?
Yeah. How did you decide who would get the coffee? Was it or the chocolates?
Right.
Were they the ones raising their hands like, oh,
I love chocolate. I
yeah.
eat chocolate every day. I want
Yeah.
the chocolate. Like, because if you did that, if you did not randomly select the groups, then you introduce all sorts of possible sources of bias.
Yep.
Or, what if it's like, oh, well, the people without a sense of smell, I put them in the no chocolate group.
Yeah.
Whoa, what? You did what? Or like, oh, the
Why'd you do
people
that?
over 65, I put them in the chocolate group.
Yeah.
What?
Or the kids.
Yeah, the
they
children
were like,
I put in the chocolate group. Huh? Okay, so there's all kinds of ways, and the more LSAT you practice, the more you're going to just get tuned into all of the possible ways that this thing could go off the rails. But they haven't even reached an actual conclusion yet. This is what being an LSAT expert really feels like, right? Where it all becomes like a game to you, where you're just like, all right, well, let's see where we're going to go with this one, because there's a million different ways that you could try to bullshit me, and I've seen them all before. So what do you got next?
Yep. Last sentence. Clearly, then, chocolate interferes with one's ability to taste coffee.
Yeah, and they used that, like, I sometimes refer to it as the F word of LSAT logical reasoning. When they start with clearly,
Yeah.
it is a conclusion indicator. Not always. Sometimes they use it in a premise. But here, they definitely are reaching their conclusion.
Yeah.
I can tell because of then as
Yeah,
well,
because of the
right?
word then. Yep.
Yeah. Clearly, then always introduces a conclusion.
Yeah.
And I just immediately go, it ain't so clear. Like, you could cut out that ly adverb
Yeah.
because it doesn't do anything. It's a bullshit, like, they're doing it for emphasis, but it doesn't actually add any power to their conclusion. I just go, no, ain't no clearly. What's
Yeah.
your conclusion that you're trying to reach? And they say, well, chocolate interferes with one's ability to taste coffee. And they could have also said obviously or definitely or surely or any other one of those. All they're doing is like talking louder.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to actually resist that even more because I just don't want people trying to jam bullshit down my throat.
Yeah.
So we've already had a million objections, but like just to run through a few of them, this is a real small sample. Maybe the sample's too small to reach any conclusions. That was Ben's objection. How did you divide the groups? Did you put the children in the coffee group or in the chocolate group? Because if you did, then maybe it's just that they're kids and kids can't tell the difference between coffees.
No, they think it's all gross.
Yeah. Could just be random chance.
Could be. Yep.
I don't know. Okay. I'm armed, I feel like.
You are armed. I want to make something very clear, and I hope people, if you've been doing logical reasoning for a while, you understand this. But we're not saying that the conclusion, chocolate interferes with one's ability to taste coffee, is false. We're just saying it's not necessarily true. This could 100% be true. It could be true. That's not the issue. The issue is, does it have to be true? And here are all the reasons why it might not end up being true. And given the fact that it might not be true is a problem, because
That's
whenever someone draws a conclusion on the LSAT, they're saying that this is definitely true.
Yeah. If they asked me what was the conclusion of the argument, I would let go of all my objections and I would say chocolate interferes with one's ability to taste coffee. I understand the argument. I'm certainly not saying that the conclusion of the argument must be false. it's totally sure. I mean, hey, this is evidence pointing in the direction that maybe chocolate does interfere with one's ability to taste coffee.
Yeah.
Totally possible. I mean, they were 5 for 5 or 10
Yeah.
for 10.
Yeah.
The chocolate eaters couldn't tell a difference. The ones who didn't eat chocolate totally could tell a difference. It's
Yeah.
pretty good evidence
Yeah.
on a small sample.
Yep.
And we don't know how you divided the groups.
But
Okay.
it's not horrible. It's just
No.
it's not proven.
Well,
and that's
it's
the problem.
typically incomplete, right?
Yeah.
This is probably the most common type of argument that we see on LSAT logical reasoning, where it's not outright flawed, nor is it 100% proven. It's just that the evidence, yeah, okay, it might suggest the conclusion that they're trying to reach, but it doesn't fully prove that conclusion, and there's lots of things to argue about here.
Yeah.
A lawyer or a law student, you know, this has direct applicability to your law school exams, because
Yep.
what we're doing here essentially is issue spotting, right? That's the first thing you have to learn how to do on a law school exam, is to notice, okay, well, what are the lawyers going to be fighting about?
Yep.
And that's what we're doing here, is like, boy, if there's lawyers on each side, you're going to have strong arguments, you know. On the pro side, well, 100% of the data that we have in the record seems to suggest this conclusion. On the con side, oh, let me start asking you 100 different questions about why your sample's so small, how you assigned those samples, could there be any other confounding factors? You know, where did you do this test?
Yeah.
Did you do this test inside of a sulfur factory? You know, or like maybe you tested.
Go get the chocolates over there in the sulfur.
Right, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
where they're handing them out. Yeah.
Yeah, go get the chocolates in the sulfur factory. Okay, because that would like totally fuck up this whole study.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Anyway, with all that, we're ready to answer any type of question that they ask us.
And the section is over, but it was fun thinking about it.
Well, this is though how good. If you're good at the LSAT, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
Because now ask me anything. Ask me a strengthen question. Ask me a weaken question. Ask me any kind of assumption question.
Necessary assumption, sufficient. Yeah.
Conclusion
absolutely.
question, reasoning question. I don't give a shit what type of question it is. I know what the argument has as evidence, and I know what conclusion they're trying to reach. And I'm already starting to see the kinds of arguments that are going to be made one way or the other.
Yeah.
So now it's like, sure, what do you want me to do?
Yep. Oh, I'm reading. Question 1. Which one of the following, if true, most undermines the conclusion drawn above?
Okay, so undermines means weakens. This is a weaken question. And it's like every time I see a weaken question, I'm like, oh, good. Because I roll out of bed in the morning weakening arguments.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's what we do. We are always in attack mode. So this is how you should do logical reasoning. If you're right now reading the question first, stop doing that. It's hurting your performance on the LSAT. Read the argument instead and always try to attack it. Most of the time, the argument's going to be either flawed or, like this one, incomplete. You should have a bunch of objections ready to go. And then, yeah, like, what do you think, Ben? 10%, 15% of the questions turn out to actually be weakened questions?
Yeah. Oh, it's a good percentage. I mean, it's not the most common, but yeah.
Well, and strengthen questions, which are basically the reverse of weaken questions anyway. It's the exact same operation. It's just you're playing for the other team, right?
Exactly. You're still looking for the weaknesses so you can strengthen them.
Yeah. Or this could have been a flaw question. This could have been an assumption question. All of the questions that they could have asked here are, well, not all of them, but a big chunk of the questions that they could have asked here are related to the weakness in the argument.
Yep.
So when it does turn out to be a weakened question, great, I'm ready. But if it turned out to be a strengthened question or some kind of an assumption question or a reasoning question or anything else, I would still be able to say, oh yeah, okay, well, here's what they did here. And probably the correct answer has something to do with the gap between the evidence and the conclusion.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking for something that, if true, will undermine this conclusion. So I'm looking for a bad fact for the people who are trying to conclude that chocolate interferes with one's ability to taste coffee.
Answer A. The 10 people were randomly assigned to either the group that tasted only coffee or the group that was also given
That's
chocolate.
a strengthener. I don't need to read any more of that one to know it's wrong.
Okay.
I mean, we objected to the argument by saying, hey, how were these groups assigned? If they were randomly assigned, that helps the argument, not hurts the argument. I don't care what the rest of that answer says.
Okay. B, similar results were achieved.
That also strengthens the argument. The fact that somebody else replicated this is only going to help the argument.
Yep.
I guess I'm trying to demonstrate here that I expect wrong answers to be wrong. 4 out of 5 answers are wrong. And so when it starts going off in the wrong direction, I just don't even need to read the rest of it. Now, once in a while, that means that I will eliminate all 5 answers and have to go back and read a little more carefully. I think it's possible that they could have crafted A or B in such a way that they make it correct. But I'm not gonna it's wrong 4 out of 5 times. When it starts off wrong, it's now wrong like 98 out of 100 times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't need to keep reading it like hoping that it miraculously resurrects itself into the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only place where we get to go fast on LSAT logical reasoning.
Yeah.
You know, I know what I'm looking for. A doesn't sound like it halfway through, then good. I don't have to read the second half of A. I know what I'm looking for. B doesn't sound like it. After 3 words, I was like, nah, that sounds like a strengthener.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so on my first pass through these answer choices, I don't need to read the rest of this bullshit.
Yeah.
This is where we really get paid off for taking our time attacking the argument in the first place.
Yeah.
Because we know what we're looking for when we get into these answer choices.
Yeah. Answer C. Chocolate is normally consumed as a solid, whereas coffee is normally consumed as a liquid.
I just don't care about that one. That's what I had pictured in my mind.
I wasn't imagining anything else. Yeah, I was like, wait a second, chocolate
hot
is
chocolate,
normally...
or how about as a gas? Ooh, I never thought about that before, Ben. Well, it's our new business
chocolate?
idea. Yeah, it's our new business idea. You inhale chocolate.
No liability there. Okay.
I was
B.
expecting that.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like new information. How does that change my assessment of the argument?
No, if that were a problem, we would have already thought of that.
Right.
Because that's just common knowledge. And whoa, hold up. Chocolate's, comes in solid form.
Chocolate's a solid. It's like, okay, thanks for your input, I guess. But yeah. Okay, D.
D. The 5 people who were originally given chocolate were asked a week later to taste coffee samples without chocolate, and they still detected no differences between the coffee samples.
I bet that they intended that to be the correct answer. I have an objection to it, which is, what if eating chocolate has long-lasting effects interfering with your ability to taste coffee?
True. That's and it's not uncommon to have objections, right, to these answers, because it's about the answer that weakens the argument the most. But I think what you're also about to say is, at the same time, it's raising an eyebrow, right?
Right. Strengtheners don't have to be perfect strengtheners. Weakeners don't have to be perfect weakeners.
Yeah.
You could object and say, what if coffee has a permanent detrimental effect to your ability to taste coffee? But although, I mean, you could think about the counter argument to that. Mm-hmm. The counter argument to that would be, oh, well, then nobody would be able to taste coffee because
you're telling me these 5 other people have never
tasted chocolate in their life, really?
Yeah.
So yeah, their intention behind D, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be correct. We still have to eliminate E, of course, but their intention behind D was, hey, these people, they just don't have any ability to taste coffee for some other reason.
Which isn't explained, but whatever.
Well, yeah, but remember our objection about children?
Mm-hmm.
What if these people are children?
Yep.
It's not the same as saying that these people were children. They have never, they think coffee's gross. They think all coffee is equally gross. But D is compatible with that understanding of the facts that were given, right? It's totally possible that these are people who just for whatever reason. I mean, they could be the people who don't have a sense of smell. They could be the people who had their taste buds burned out in some accident. They could be children who don't have a palate for coffee. If if we repeated the experiment on these exact same people without the chocolate and they still can't taste differences in the coffee, then it doesn't really seem like it was the chocolate that interfered with their ability to taste the coffee.
Yeah. Answer E. Some subjects who tasted just coffee reported only subtle differences between the coffee samples, while others thought the differences were considerable.
So that's a difference between, among the 5 people who did taste differences in the coffee. Some of them tasted subtle differences and some of them had considerable differences. Who cares? It just doesn't actually change the facts at all. It's like more details about that one group, but I'm more interested in the other group. Like the other group, the ones that had the chocolate and didn't taste any differences in the coffee at all, they're the people that I'm really interested in. And D is about them. D says, yeah, we redid the experiment with people who, and then we didn't give them the chocolate this time, and they still couldn't taste the differences between the coffee. Oh, well, maybe these people were not the best people to have in the study for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason is. I still don't have an understanding of why the original results came out the way they came out, but it does help me to question the conclusion that they were trying to draw from that study. And so here, yeah, I'm 100% sure that the answer is D.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, let's leave it there. You can be LSAT famous. It's a slow time of year right now, y'all. This episode is kind of short because we just haven't been getting that many emails. Email help@thinkinglsat.com if you'd like to get on the agenda for a future show. If you have questions about LSAT Demon, you can email help@lsatdemon.com. We've got a truly kick-ass customer service team. So if you have any questions about the way Demon billing works or what you get with your subscriptions or whatever, that's help@lsatdemon.com.
Yeah.
Please check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. We have episodes, we try to have episodes 5 days a week when we have enough content. The email there, by the way, is daily@lsatdemon.com. So you have 2 different places where you might be able to send in questions for the show. No need to send it into both. They both come to me. Anything else about that?
Nope.
Okay, that was episode 331 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.